Take a nap. That's an order.
Try to be diplomatic.
That's adventurous.
We took a ride in a rowboat. Let's go.
We took a ride in a rowboat. Welcome to Enterprise at 8. This is the Live Long In podcast Star Trek Enterprise Rewatch series. It's been over 20 years since today's episode Unexpected aired, and we're just getting started. I'm Jody Simpson, and my co-host tonight is none other than the great, the not late, Adam Woodward. Hello, Adam.
I wasn't late. Hey, I'm good, guys. How are you this afternoon?
I'm all right. How are you?
Tonight.
Well,
tonight.
This evening.
Well,
yes.
tonight, actually,
Yes.
technically, but it could be this afternoon wherever somebody else is watching. So
You're
that
right.
makes sense. And of course, also joining Adam and I, our awesome producer, Live Long In podcast very own, Dave Mater.
Hello. Here to talk about 3 Men and a Baby or something like that.
Yeah, it's Tucker and a Baby, I guess maybe is more appropriate.
He's more of a host, than anything.
Exactly.
But...
Unfortunately, series regular Kevin Millard is feeling under the weather today, so he won't be joining us. So get well soon, Kevin. We hope you feel better soon. Tonight's episode is Unexpected. This is the 5th episode in the series, 4th if Netflix is to be believed. The Enterprise encounters some hitchhikers of sort.
It is our 4th podcast, though.
It is our 4th podcast because the first 2 episodes were one episode for us. Yeah. So it's our 4th, but episode 5th. So this Enterprise encounters some hitchhikers of a sort, and they try to help them out. But Trip picks up an extra hitchhiker, as well as a couple extra nipples, and an unexpected passenger he never bargained for, as well as nipples.
Yeah.
Well, there was that
Wow.
box of pebbles.
It's true. You know what? You should never really trust a box of pebbles, I think, is really the takeaway from all this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
One of the first things a diplomat learns is not to stick his fingers where they don't belong.
It's true. Your fingers definitely need to belong somewhere, and in a pebble box on an alien world is not one of them.
No. So, an interesting episode in some ways, although in other ways, just like I guess the premise of a man being pregnant and this being hilarious, I guess, is less, funny to me maybe now than it was in 2001, or if it was that funny to me in 2001. I do think of the movie Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger from like the 90s, which was kind of the same premise. And so this is like Enterprise, Star Trek's version of that, which
It is.
I guess Junior was only like sometime in the late 90s. So I guess we're only probably talking about 5 years difference or something.
Well, the best thing about this episode, I think, is watching Archer try to hide laughing all the time.
Yes.
And T'Pol's cut-ups on everybody, I think, is really the key factors here.
T'Pol with the jabs.
Yeah, she's got a lot of jabs in this episode. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into it. So essentially the episode starts with Archer in the shower, which I guess is for the ladies. I don't know if this did anything.
Is this for
any
the
of you
ladies?
Guys. This might be for the ladies. Maybe
some of the fellas, maybe, but
I'm guessing the mid-40s ladies. This is aimed at. I'm not totally sure. But anyway, he's the thing I like about this actually is a good scene because you get to see the fact that they're having failures, and one of the failures is the gravity plating. Which allows for the gravity on the ship, and all of a sudden all the shower water is moving up and down and all over the place, like they're in 0G. And then obviously somebody fixes it, and Archer falls on his ass in the shower. So
yeah, a couple questions about this.
Okay.
Like because it's one of the only times we've seen an actual like water shower in Star Trek, because the sonic showers
usually
are
a sonic shower. Yep.
are the go-to in the 24th century at least. But here back in the 22nd century, they're still using normal water like we use in our century. But I don't know. Like, I guess what threw me off here is that like the shower unit isn't sort of prepared for a gravity failure. There's no handlebars maybe up in places or whatever.
Or just the typical rough rides they usually get in Star Trek.
Yeah, if, like you were in the shower and the ship got like got hit by a photon torpedo or something. And the ship shook.
I think it's assumed that if you're in that type of situation, I think probably the falling in the shower is the least of your issues. Plus, on top of that, I think the medical abilities have gone far enough now that they can fix stuff like broken pelvic bones and stuff like that.
He takes a pretty hard fall.
He gets a pretty good fall, yeah, for sure.
And it could have been way worse. Like he could have hit the edge of this little table over here, right? Or
yeah, there's a lot of sharp corners.
The glass could have broke.
The original Enterprise.
The glass could have broke. Yeah, and just
we're assuming that's glass. We don't know.
I would
it could be some sort of compound.
Designing a spaceship, I think I would put like handlebars. You see them on the bridge, and you see them in certain places, but just this kind of thing, like if.
Well, it wouldn't be as interesting of a scene if Archer had a bar to hold on to during.
No, he would. Yeah, he was quite annoyed by all this too. I got
he was really.
What the hell's going on?
But he was also very patient because he didn't complain too much. He's the captain and he could have barked, but he didn't really.
Well, and this is where we're kind of starting to see Archer smarten up a bit, I think. I don't know if you guys got that, but I got a little bit of Archer being a little bit more professional.
Well, he was
a little bit less testy.
Either.
What's up?
He wasn't the star of this show.
Well, that's true. Yes, this is very a trip episode. I personally think T'Pol is probably the best part of this episode, but I guess we'll get into that.
And the other, Trips was he was kind of like the feature of the last episode, although you could kind of argue it was kind of Trip and T'Pol maybe last week, and then this week it's definitely his episode. So
it's certainly his episode, yeah.
Before we're getting, I don't know, like a T'Pol episode, or before we're getting like a Reed episode.
But he's the only one that they could really send in this type of scenario anyway, because they're not going to send Archer because Archer doesn't know a damn thing about fixing anything. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to send the doctor. They're not going to send Mayweather. They're not going to send the weapons guy.
Well, they could have had any problem needed to send whichever crewman would be needed to go.
They could have, but they were clearly going for the 3 Men and the Baby vibe or whatever it was that they were going for here. Right. But anyway, they're having variety of issues, and they finally T'Pol clues in. I think that they have some sort of wake behind them as they're in warp. So they've had to come out of warp. And
this is why the shower failed, or the gravity failed, right?
Yeah, because everything kind of you get the idea that everything kind of relies that it kind of has to be all within sync. If it's not within sync, then various systems are going to suffer because of it.
There were a few like malfunctions that were happening.
Yeah,
like,
they had replicator issues.
This one where she was getting carbonated water. Very adventurous, Jody.
It was very carbonated, though.
Now that's adventurous.
It was so carbonated. It was that stuff that they give you when you, swallow something you shouldn't swallow in the hospital. The charcoal stuff. So it was very carbon.
Interesting to see like this breakfast buffet that they have going on. Mm-hmm. And just like we haven't had too many scenes yet with these two in particular, Phlox and T'Pol being the two aliens on the ship.
It's funny you said that about the breakfast, because it really did remind me of hotels I've been in. Every breakfast at 6.
Breakfast,
the crappy eggs in the huge vat thing.
You got the container full of muffins there and granola, and you had it all going.
So we're just going to get craft services to come in.
They're still keeping the character of Phlox, though, because Phlox, throughout all the episodes so far, has always been eating a whole bunch of things. Yes. So he's out there to be adventurous. He tries new things all the time, stuff like that, which is another reason why I love that character. But if you notice, his plate is quite... it's got quite a lot of different things on it.
He's going with bacon,
Yeah, he's going bacon. He's got some
watermelon
slices
these
on there.
Blueberry pancakes.
Yeah,
yeah, and he's got like a folded up pancake, like a burrito, and he's trying to like force feed it to her, and stuff like
There's
that.
an old
So that's
saying,
cool.
when in Philipia, do as the Philippians do.
Indeed, we should. But anyway, yeah. So we're seeing all these different failures of different systems around. They had some engine issues as well, the nacelle issues, which led them to look into the wake
Trip's
issue.
busy.
Trip is a busy man, I guess, is really what it comes down to, because later he's going to be a busy working mom. So I guess this is kind of foreshadowing into what's happening later. But anyway, T'Pil eventually notices there's some sort of wake behind them. They I can't remember exactly what they did. Did they shoot something, or they shot something out towards, which kind of
Well, Arch is like, what will happen if we ignite the plasma? And everyone's like confused.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, right? Everybody's like, what happens if we ignite the plasma? It's like, why would Archer even mention this?
So Archer kind of figures this out, doesn't tell anybody what he's just like, no, I think I know what's going on. And he's just like,
well, he doesn't want to be one-upped by T'Pol like he usually is.
Yeah, he's like, everyone hold up. Archer is going to tell you what the hell is going on.
Yeah, Daddy
Archer. What the hell's going on?
What's going on? Yeah, exactly. So anyway, they end up igniting this plasma, which then creates an image. They look at the image a couple times, all CSI style. Bring it back 20 frames. Enhance. And then after that, well, they didn't really do all that, but they should have. But anyway, they end up noticing that there's this ship behind them, and the ship essentially is hitchhiking off of them. And obviously then that entails them to want to communicate. So they try to communicate, which brings a very cool, in my opinion, a very cool scene where the aliens are starting to talk. They talk to a point where you don't understand them. And then all of a sudden you hear the universal translator start to clue in and how to do with it. So it's not as in real time as it was in Kirk's day and going forward. So it's kind of neat to see that there's a bit of a delay there. And they finally, the universal translator kind of hones in on the phonetic responses.
It only has to hear like a few words, and then it can speak the whole language.
It starts figuring it out. Yeah, Dave, that's the miracle of the technology in the 22nd century.
Wow.
It's they have showers that they don't worry about fall hazards anymore. And later on, we see stuff like holodecks, which are interesting as well. So another really cool. There's a lot of firsts in this episode, actually. So we'll get through all those, I guess, eventually. So anyway, they end up communicating with this race. They realize that this race is not harmful, or at least they don't appear to be harmful. And they end up figuring out that they're having a problem. They're having a problem with their warp coils, I guess it is. And they need some help. And of course, Mr. Tucker himself is going to go over there and help out, I guess, is a good way. So we get to see them docking with the ship, all that stuff.
Yeah, so this whole 3 hours of decompression that he had to go through, and the Klingons had to go through later on in the episode,
which we didn't see them go through, which I thought would have been great if we could see how they.
Yeah, just him hanging out with Klingons in a chamber.
Yeah, like the awkwardness of it. He does mention that there was some awkwardness, such as smells he's never smelt before.
Yeah, probably a peaty aroma with a hint of lilac.
Could have been.
As Julian Bashir would describe it. But that was kind of a neat thing too, because we don't see that done too often, like where you have to go through a decompression. Usually you would just wear like an environmental suit, or it's usually presented that everybody can kind of survive in the same atmosphere. But
yeah, which I think leads to a little bit more authenticity on the fact that this is an early thing, right? Like, so this is, we see him there and he's breathing in this what looks like a noxious gas, but it's obviously a way of them climatizing him to their environment, because they breathe something slightly different than he does.
Can I just stop you there for a second? Because
absolutely, you can.
I think that transition was really cool.
Indeed.
Because in most Star Trek, they beam down to the planet and everything's fine, and there's never really a transition to like sort of a different gravity or air or whatever it might be. They're just fine. This is, I think, the first time we ever saw somebody, into a different environment where they're actually in panic because they can't catch their breath. Or I think he did a good job and in conveying that. The writing was really cool to actually try that for once.
Well, and the thing that I like is right after when he gets onto their bridge or whatever it is, the receiving area that he's getting into, the camera actually starts shooting at like 20 frames per second. So it's cool to make that little effect, right? So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's making it look like he's drugged up or something once he gets in there. Everything's a little bit warped. He's disorientated.
Well, it's like the bends, right? Like it's something kind of like that, right? Where he's got some sort of effect.
So right away, of course, being an engineer, he wants to get to work. Show me engineering. So they drag him up there, and he's working underneath something, and you can just see the lights are flashing and noise is there, and he's almost in panic. He calls the captain and says, "Get me the hell out of here."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he starts panicking. Like it's a hard panic too. Like he's really struggling at this point. So we're seeing a lot of that struggle.
But
which
can you guys think of another episode or series or anything that happened?
No, I can't.
No, not with a Starfleet character, because it's like normally this is their bread and butter. This is, even if they're an engineer and they just want to do the work, that it's a bit odd that only he goes on this mission in some ways. Like it seems like even just sending T'Pol along might have been a good idea for scientific or anthropological research or whatever, because this is a first contact mission too. As much as it is,
but
like
this also shows some of the stubbornness of Trip as well, because the aliens are saying to him, "You need to rest after this decontamination process." He's like, "Nope, let's just get to work." Blah blah blah. And they even mention it later on that he refused rest. He just wanted to go straight into the problem, and
Take a
he
nap.
starts
That's
suffering
an
for
order.
it. Yeah, and then Archer obviously gives him an order to take a nap. But he basically, he was basically not adapting well. And, that could have easily been avoided if he just, followed some of the instructions that were given to him. So it's nice to see some of the cockiness of Trip as well, because Trip is kind of cocky. Later on, he starts becoming very, very by the book and stuff like that, which I think is kind of cool.
But again, though, when he shows up here, it's all business, right? He's not the first contact guy.
No, he's the guy that's just trying to get them on their way, kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely, 100%.
But he's been complaining for two or three episodes now that I gotta get out there.
Anywhere.
I'm out here to
never
explore.
gets to go anywhere. Yeah,
He never gets to.
Yeah, it's true.
So basically, we get a lot of scenes of him, kind of suffering a bit alongside the alien, who I don't think I can pronounce her name if I wanted to. Dave might have the pronunciation there, but
Alen.
Ahlen.
Alen.
Yeah. Ahlen. Okay. Ahlen. We'll just call her Ahlen for now. But basically, he's working alongside her. They're working. They're getting along, even though he's having an issue. He's calling back and forth to the ship every so often, bitching and moaning about how he's having a hard time, blah, blah, blah. So finally, they end up saying, okay, at this point, what is it? I guess Archer tells him, now it's time to take a rest, kind of thing. There isn't much that happens in between that, I don't think, that's really worth mentioning, other than we see them underneath a bunch of tubes that look like they went to Home Depot just before the production shot. But past that, a lot of clear dryer vent hoses.
Tubes. They need those. You need those on a ship full of grass and moss and whatever the heck she was picking off the wall to eat.
Irrigation is a very very important thing, I guess.
The one thing I didn't get was that she goes, "This is the closest thing we have to water," and she basically feeds him gelatin cubes of.
Yeah, there's some sort of suspended cube. Yeah,
like we're talking about water, right? Like it's a universal substance. It's not like
it's a universal thing to us, but again, we don't know if water even exists.
Well,
outside of that,
was
but
sitting on
they're in
some
a
water
boat later.
Yeah,
they're
on their
later,
planet.
But you also see that tank full of eels.
Yes.
Yeah, they have a tank full of eels,
water as well.
But
yeah.
maybe not. I guess drinking water they don't use or something.
Yeah, well, we have plenty of different water on our planet, but not all of it's consumable. So I guess maybe the same thing applies to them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But either way,
he also said that you could smell the salt in the air when they're on the holodeck. So I mean, clearly it's salt water, but
okay,
yeah, which wouldn't be very drinkable.
What was going on with that tank of eels? Is that their food?
Yeah, I guess they didn't explain it.
Everything's food for them. Yeah, they
But,
didn't explain the eels. They were just there.
But again, I think they did a really good job of showing that this is not something that, Enterprise people are used to.
Very alien.
Yes.
Even for Star Trek, this is very
He was
alien.
very out of his element, I think, which was part of, obviously it's the theme of the episode. He's out of his element, being on this alien ship, all these experiences that he's having. And then, of course, he's also out of his element when he ends up becoming pregnant. So I think that's kind of the theme of the episode, so to speak. But he ends up having his nice rest, all that stuff. And eventually they start... Yeah, he starts getting these electric water cubes, electric ice cubes, whatever they are. I
didn't think at this point, were electric. It was the touch of her was the electric part.
It was her touch that was the electric part. Yeah, well, because you see later on she's touching him, and you're even in the stones thing, in the holodeck thing that they have.
Yeah.
When they're putting their hands in the stones, you can see the electricity coming off of her, or what it appears to be electricity anyway. So, it's basically that, but you're definitely getting the impression now that Trip is attracted to her. And then of course she ends up taking him to this room, which essentially is their version of a holodeck, which obviously is a first for, the humans to see. They've never seen this technology before. So this could be the origin story for holodecks as we know it. We don't really find out, but that is something that, could easily be foreshadowing. Maybe this is where they got the idea to start working on that technology, because it seems like it was almost inconceivable to him as he's talking about it, right? So it's interesting to see that, and he's actually asking about, how does this work? Like, why can I feel the sand in my hands? That kind of thing, which I thought was pretty cool as well to see.
Yeah, I get. I don't know. I'm like, that stuff was supposed to be new in the 24th century. And then, but
it's taken them that long to figure it out, probably.
Well,
how to do it.
Apparently, they gave it to the Klingons in this episode.
Well, the Klingons got to see it. We don't know what ended up happening with it.
No.
They were given it, but who knows if they could use it, right?
It was kind of neat, but it was also, I don't know, it bugs me a little bit. Just I'm like, you don't need to go there. It's not. It doesn't feel like you needed this to make the episode good, but it doesn't hurt anything, I guess.
I don't think it really hurts anything. I think it's a nice callback to something that's going to happen later on. So I think if anything, it's cool to be reminded of that first time that I saw that on Next Gen, right? Which literally was the first episode. In Encounter at Farpoint, they showed that.
That's right.
You had Data sitting.
What was he whistling? I can't remember.
Pop Goes the Weasel.
Yeah, but he couldn't remember when he was dead. Remember in Nemesis?
No, he couldn't remember when he was dead. Yeah.
But yeah, this material that they like, this reflective. I liked this. This reminded me a lot of like the original series.
Yes, I was just thinking that. Yeah,
the original series here, but even the costuming of Alain here was very original series.
Very original series. Yeah.
Very. Yeah.
Do we have a full shot of her?
Yeah, Dave? I can get a shot of her. I just need to
get a shot of her somewhere.
Because you didn't really see this on Next Gen too often. I mean, they did sometimes, but not too often.
No. But I thought the makeup and everything, the alien effects, I thought were really well done.
Really well done. Yeah.
Yeah. I that's one thing I can honestly say about this series. Looking back at it again, I'm amazed on how good a lot of the stuff looks, because number one, this was the first series in HD, so they did have to step it up a bit, and obviously the CG stuff that they do is a little off.
Some of that floating water in the shower.
Oh yeah, like the floating water was definitely off. But again, it's a TV show. They only have a certain amount of budget for that type of stuff.
It's 2001, so.
Yeah, 2001 TV show. So, I think it's good for 2001. I think looking at it on my 720p screen back then, it would have looked a lot better than it does now on my 4K TV. But, what can you do, right? But anyway, we eventually get a scene where they're in this rowboat. She's showing him her, I guess, native planet, in this holodeck. They're now in the rowboat. There you go, right there.
Row your boat gently down the stream.
God, I knew that was coming the minute I saw that.
Merrily, gently down the stream.
Okay.
We took a ride in a rowboat.
A rowboat.
A ride in a rowboat. Right? So anyway, the thing about this is they're, at this point you're kind of getting the impression that they're both kind of into each other a bit.
I
And
think it was way before here, but yes.
well, it was way before here, but this was kind of the seal the deal moment, I guess, so to speak, or at least we thought it was going
being
to be.
Star Trek, they just had to spell it out. You're attracted to me?
Yeah,
you like when people are attracted to you.
Yeah. So anyway, they're putting their hands in these pebbles, which look kind of like fake cubic zirconia diamond things or something. So anyway, they put both their hands in each one of them, and then all of a sudden they have the ability to know what the other person's thinking and feeling and stuff like that.
It's a game, Jody. It's a game.
It's apparently a game. At least that's what Trip was told. Where, the only game I can see that they're playing right now is who's paying the child support. But past that, and how many nipples am I going to grow on my arm? But anyway, so they put their hands in. They start talking about all this stuff. They past that, something,
What was that? Box of pebbles.
The box of pebbles, absolutely. Never trust a box of pebbles, guys. I guess that's really what it comes down to here.
With the lizard woman.
Hey,
Exactly.
speaking of lizard women, doesn't she remind you of the Zerulean? Is that right?
Zerulean, and it's a species never seen before or after this.
No,
yes.
I was actually going to take a leap over to Doctor Who.
It does actually. I did think of that. Yeah.
Those like lizard people. Yeah.
Yeah, that was in
the one who lives in like the 1800s. And
Yeah.
I know who you mean.
Yeah.
Can't remember her name right now, but
that was during Tennant's rule, I think.
They're a little bit greener. These guys are a little bit browner. But
Yeah, I'm just bringing up a picture of her. She's got way more of a head.
Yeah, she's more like a dinosaur.
Dinosaur,
head.
yeah.
Very, very much like a dinosaur hybrid kind of thing. Yeah. But anyway, this is, in my opinion, up to here. The episode's but then it starts getting good.
Wait a second.
When I say good,
I thought this episode actually up to here, up until the holodeck was really interesting.
I don't know. I thought it was just standard stuff. There was some cool things.
All this stuff that wasn't standard. We just talked about all the stuff that wasn't standard.
True.
I think
in general, though,
when it gets back to the ship and after this whole reveal happens, it just becomes about a bunch of jokes about Trip being pregnant, being embarrassed,
but that's what I enjoyed the most about this episode. Was T'Pol.
T'Pol was great.
T'Pol was fantastic in this episode. She finally starts showing a little bit of humor, even though I don't know if she's intentionally doing it or not. I don't think we really know for sure. She kind of has a bit of a chuckle to her. It's just like Archer hiding his laughter all the time in his hand is hilarious. There's the nipple. Yes, okay.
The allergic reaction, Jody. The allergic
reaction.
Yes, it's an allergic reaction. And Phlox gently tells him that that's actually a nipple. Trip, you're an idiot. That's a nipple. And
then again, I have
it turns out you're knocked
species.
up. Yeah. Turns out you're knocked up. At that point, we see T'Pol chastise Trip in the medical bay.
You were
she
there.
says something along the lines of, "You were there
Yeah.
3 days, and this happens," kind of thing. And then she just keeps making fun of him subtly as Archer is sitting there with his hand over his face most of the time. I don't know if that was genuine laughter or if that was just laughter at Trip's expense as part of the character. I don't know. Either way, still great to see.
Speaking of which, hiding the bulge
Seems to help hide the bulge.
I don't think we're talking about the same bulge.
I know. But is this setting up the fact that T'Pol is jealous or is secretly harboring feelings for Trip, and therefore this is jealousy here? Is that what this is?
Not yet.
I don't know. I think at this point she still resents how a lot of these guys are acting, because they're still acting a little nonchalant. They're not doing everything the way that they should be doing it. And she looks at this as another reflection of another thing where somebody from the crew is not being the diplomatic person they need to be. Instead, he's going and getting knocked up.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I can just, it's like the underlying tone is basically, oh, fuck, here we go again.
Yeah, T'Pol's had enough of this shit. She's gone through what 4 episodes of this now.
Oh yeah, and just mentioning like it's bad enough I have to smell bacon and these other meat foods in the mess hall and whatever.
Yeah.
And
Well, and we already know that they have a heightened sense of smell, so everything stinks to them, right? Like
Right.
humans stink themselves to them, right? So, but she's tolerating it. But I think we're really starting to see T'Pol's character, in a way, loosen up a bit, which is kind of nice to see. In a way, I think she's becoming more part of the crew. At this point, I think this is where we're kind of starting to see, a little bit of banter between them, which is kind of nice to see. So anyway, there was also a joke about, you shouldn't stick your fingers where they don't belong, which I think Dave has a clip for.
oh yeah, I do. He was like the box of pebbles.
One of the first things a diplomat learns is not to stick his fingers where they don't belong.
She's 100% correct. You do not stick your fingers where they don't belong. But anyway,
speaking and Trip goes on like this whole mad speech about it. But I could get my fingers cut off on this little lift thing or whatever it is.
Well, and that's actually what I have in my notes. Trip goes back to work and gets moody. That's what my notes say.
Or maternal.
This poor guy who works for him, he's like, "What's up, man?"
Now that's a good point, Adam. Yeah, he is. He's becoming maternal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Makes sense.
I saw pictures of my wife, 18 years ago, baby proofing the home.
Yeah.
In
Well,
this
I think you're starting to make your nest, right? So,
Yeah.
that's something that's ingrained in a lot of people, and in a way, I guess that's where it shows, right?
Look what's gonna happen to your fingers if you stick them there.
Yeah, they're gonna get cut off, and the crewman's
The
just
guy
like,
goes- then the guy
like,
goes,
who's gonna put their fingers there?
well, why would you put
But-
your fingers there?
Why would you put your fingers there? That's perfectly a logical question, right? Like, you're not supposed to be doing that in the elevator.
But it is
You
a
know.
handrest.
But it's not. It's a warning thing. It's to stop people from falling off the platform. It has nothing to do with holding on to it.
I don't know. Like there's more.
That's why it has
safety-
hazard paint.
Who's the safety inspector around here? Homer Simpson?
Well, it could be. Who knows? Then we get a great
7G, yes.
we get a great scene after the moodiness scene, which is Trip going to get food, and he goes into the captain's mess. And as he goes into the captain's mess, he's got this huge shirt on, which hides the bulge. Apparently,
Everyone's look at him. Everyone knows.
yeah, everybody knows
That
because
guy
he's
knows.
paranoid. Yeah, that guy knows for sure. T'Pol is such a big mouth, but whatever. But anyway, so he's in this like huge shirt, and he's walking around like he's a pregnant woman essentially. He's in this nice comfortable shirt and whatnot, and then he shows them his arm where now there's multiple nipples growing up his arm, which I never thought I'd say in any episode of any Star Trek review ever, but there is multiple nipples growing up his arm. How do you feel about the nipples, Dave?
I'm okay. Well, he already has nipples. Why weren't they good enough? Why did he have to grow new ones? And
Because maybe that alien grows nipples on their arms.
I guess they do. And maybe, but her arms.
That might be more. It might be easier to feed your kids with your arms than with
You
your
don't
whole
put your
body.
shirt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Even though he's got that comfy shirt on.
I'm okay with the nipples on the arms, I suppose, as much as like
And even
just
during,
like
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
in Star Trek 6 when the guy's got his balls on his knee and they got that was not his knee. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But you know what?
That was a great scene.
This scene it did bother me a bit about how much he mistrusts T'Pol. But again, I think that was the hormones.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
know.
think it's
Yeah.
supposed to show
Speaking
that.
of which, like this is like the first time I've seen Phlox invited to the captain's mess.
Hey, didn't you say last week why isn't the captain here or why isn't the doctor here?
Yeah, there's a chair, there's a seat, but T'Pol's not here, and he is instead. I guess maybe Archer has like a week a night with him or something where he does sit with the doctor.
Well,
He's the captain. He can have anybody he wants.
He
over.
can, yeah, he invites whoever he feels like that day. So if he wants, or I guess there's certain ongoing ones like Trip. I think is an ongoing invite. T'Pol's an ongoing invite,
You
and
know
then he
what else
probably
is an
just
invite?
senior crew moves around.
Jody, as you had this, table set here, breadsticks are an invite every meal.
Yeah, every meal there's always
every-
breadsticks. Yeah,
and Trip steals a bunch here at the end.
yes, he does. Yeah, I noticed that actually.
Yes,
They're
yeah.
very subtle on it, but he does notice it. You do notice it. But I think what's great about this is another scene where Archer is losing it. Like they keep saying stuff, and Archer is just like,
Well, yeah, they're supposed to be like being discreet about his pregnancy and everything, and hiding the bulge.
yeah, and they literally
Seems to
say
help
something.
hide the bulge.
Yeah,
I suggest
and
you
then
stick with the civilian clothes.
But this guy who comes in, like
the
they're kinda
crewman guy comes in.
they're talking about it openly and whatever, and then I kept thinking about this poor guy. Like, so he like, guess what, man, you're in Starfleet. Guess what, man, you get to go to space and everything else. That's great, man. What's my job going to be? Your job is to bring the captain iced tea and breadsticks. That's your job.
Yeah.
Someone's
Make
gotta
sure
do
that
it.
bread. He's literally a server at Olive Garden. He's
Yeah.
keeping the breadsticks flowing.
Starfleet assignment, Olive Garden waiter.
Hey, for all we know, this is an Olive Garden franchise in space. We have no idea.
But
Not only that, but if you notice when he left, the door didn't close behind him.
Yeah.
So he purposely kept the door open. So maybe he wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah, he wants to
But
sell it.
again, here, this is it's just so funny to me because Trip, as you pointed out, walked right through the galley where everybody's sitting down and having their meals. The door opens and they can see the captain at his own table.
Yes.
It just seems so strange to me that the captain is removed. But I get it's military. I get it, but it's just.
Yeah, and that's one thing we have to remember. We're not on the we're not on a Galaxy class starship.
I don't think Picard had dinner with the crew either, honestly.
No. Actually, if anything, Picard was shown having dinner by himself constantly.
Actually, like the
of
kitchen
times.
that Neelix uses in Voyager is actually supposed to be Janeway's private dining room. But
That's right. Yeah.
they changed that space into because they needed to have a kitchen.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know if the Enterprise D had a private dining room for the captain or not.
Oh, I'm sure. It's such a huge ship. It's probably got five of them.
I'm going to have to look at my Star Trek blueprint
Your
book that I
technical
have.
manual. There's
The
so much
technical
stuff in that
manual,
Enterprise that we never saw inside the.
Oh yeah, like the Dolphins Bay and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, the swimming pools, they talk about the arboretum. We kind of see it, but not really.
We see it once in a while. Yeah, if Keiko's interested in it. But anyways. Or Barkley, yeah, for sure. So anyway, and then somebody lets Trip know that he appears to be the first on record to have the first interspecies pregnancy, as well as the first male pregnancy in humans. So he's just revolutionizing things, and he makes a joke along the lines of, well, it's great that's what I'm going to be known for. That's my legacy. So what can you do? But then we get something really interesting. They start looking for the ship because they need to get, they need to figure out what's going on here. Can they get this embryo, moved to somebody else? Because clearly it's not supposed to be in Trip's body. But anyway, and they start looking for these aliens, and then they end up finding them, funny enough, by a Klingon battle cruiser. So we get to see our first Klingon battle cruiser, and I thought they did a fantastic job of keeping it the way it should have been. That
ship shouldn't exist yet.
Well,
but it does.
It exists. Not only does it exist, but they didn't know about it. So at that point, maybe it makes sense that they would see this the first time. Right?
Maybe, I guess. Like they're kind of making it out. They're retconning things as they go here, but. Here's my first question about this whole transition over to the Klingons and thing is when they get called to the bridge from like the galley or whatever, T'Pol is up on the bridge in the captain's chair.
Yes.
Why does she sit on the captain's chair like this? Why does she sit like on the very edge of it?
She does that throughout the series.
Because you know what? I don't think if she sat further back, her legs would dangle.
Her legs she's too short?
She's maybe too short for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
that's possible.
Normally you sit with your back to it, but she's like sitting on it like this. Like
I think she's always ready.
And that's a deep seat. Like I think her legs would actually be swinging.
Yeah, and I think Archer is also a pretty tall guy too. So, you get the impression that he's fairly tall. I don't know what he's like in real life, but
she's a very tiny woman. Like honestly,
she is a tiny person. Yeah,
Jolene
for sure.
Blaylock, I wonder how tall she is actually in real life. I'm sure I can find it out.
I'm sure we can figure that out if we need to. But we see this Klingon battle cruiser. I think it looks fantastic. I think they did a great job keeping it the way it should have looked, based on the time frame and stuff like that. It looks pretty basic.
I wish that they would have played the Klingon music as it turned towards them.
That would have been cool. but maybe that music hasn't been invented yet. Who knows? Anyway, I think the ship looks great. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I think it looks fantastic. I think
I
they did a
love
great
Klingon
job.
ships.
I love the design. I've always liked them since I was little,
Yeah.
and I love the look of that, especially the way they kept it very original, which I liked. So that was great. And then we got essentially the first words said by Hoshi in 38 minutes of an episode, and she says literally like one line or something. I don't
She's
remember
like, the
what it was.
afterlife. That's what Stovacor means. Thanks, Hoshi.
Yeah,
We
Stovacor
already knew
means
that.
the afterlife. It's like, yeah, fantastic. We kind of clued it anyway, but that's fine.
Well,
You had
Archer
to have your
didn't.
speaking part.
Archer didn't clue in.
Well, Archer didn't clue in, but
He's rusty on his Klingon.
yeah, but
This is a better shot, but of the ship.
yeah, that's a great shot. Look at that thing. That's just pretty. But either way, we get in this. We still figure out that T'Pol literally is still the best diplomatic person on the ship. She proves it yet again by talking to the Klingons.
But again, it's just experience. She
It
has
is. Yep. Yeah,
And,
yeah, for sure. But
like, as
we're,
this-
we're establishing that more. Yeah.
completely. And as we go on, I mean, Archer is starting to really, I think, finally understand exactly her value in this mission.
Oh,
Every
for
time
sure.
they nearly die,
Yeah.
and she gets
Yeah.
them out of it.
But I think that's where this is kind of a transitional episode, I find, to this, because if you notice, Archer he's not getting up her ass at all about anything in this episode. Probably the first episode since we started where he hasn't been against something she said. So we're starting to see that transition of him seeing her as a valuable asset, which is good, I think. So
Yeah, Jolene Blaylock 5'6".
5'6". There you go. And what is what's Archer?
You want me to look up him? He's
Well,
probably
I'd be interested to figure it out. I'm sure
he's
he's
only like
I'm sure he's like
6'2".
6. He's got to be 6'2", 6'3" anyway.
So
Yeah.
half a foot taller than her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
easily. Yeah.
And she's got
So-
those big, the shoes that she wears.
Maybe she needs like one of those little platforms to put her feet on.
Yeah, but the only thing, the major complaint I have at this point in the episode is we're literally 3 minutes away from the end of the episode, so they kind of just throw everything at you at the end. So
He's only
literally,
5'11" and 3/4. He's not even 6 feet.
really, wow, okay, interesting. So maybe his feet don't touch either.
He's
and
like
we
my
just never
dad
see it.
type, basically.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But either way, we end up seeing, they discuss it with the Klingons. The Klingons essentially say, let's kill everybody on the ship except for the captain of the ship. Then at that point, T'Pol kind of says, it starts getting a little bit more diplomatic with them.
The Chancellor
Eventually-
called him a brother. He
Yeah,
called
the Chancellor called him a brother. And then that's kind of what turned things, because we all know that the
Stop
Klingons...
your Klingon civil war. You guys should be licking his boots, she says. Or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then obviously we find out later that isn't true.
It's okay to
she
exaggerate. It's in
She
the spirit.
exaggerated. She didn't lie. She exaggerated. I'm sure he said something. It just wasn't to those means. But anyway, at that point,
I always
Sorry?
get a laugh out of when Vulcans, I didn't lie, I exaggerated, or it's an omission.
It's a live omission.
well, we all know that the Vulcans do have the ability to precede their rules, though. Like they have the ability to modify the rules, and they do it all the time. We see it a lot with Quinto's character in the remakes, for sure.
When were you going to tell me when it became relevant?
Yeah, when it became relevant, and now it's relevant, right? So, and it's the same thing. So eventually they end up finding the ship in the wake of the Klingon ship. Obviously, they threaten to kill them all. T'Pol basically talks them out of it by saying, Archer is the guy who did everything for them, blah blah blah. So they end up going. The one thing this I think we already said this earlier is this scene would have been much better if we got to see how they decontaminated decompress or whatever.
Yeah, with the Klingons.
Yeah, with the Klingons and Trip in the same room. I thought that would have made a great scene to see, I'm sure.
Like he shows
maybe
up with them and he's like, you better do what they say or they're all going to kill you. So just give them a holodeck.
Yeah,
So
they want
again,
that holodeck stuff. Let's just do that.
Yeah, but that's weird to me. Again, the Klingons wouldn't be interested in the pleasure of a holodeck. I mean, they're going to want it. Like they just had a ship that was riding in their wake for a couple of days. You think that they want to know about that technology?
Yeah,
But you have to remember, though, that the holographic technology is also stuff like cloaking technology. It's also all
Fair
that
enough.
stuff. So all that could be transformed into that stuff, right? So
He's like, I want to see
any
my
technology
house.
they don't possess would be technology they'd be interested in, I think. You know,
Yeah.
unless it was like how to grow flowers or something like that, they probably wouldn't care about that. But you know,
These
stuff
Klingons
like
are
that.
amazingly restrained in this whole thing. You know,
These guys are outskirt Klingons. You know, I guess they're not your typical run of the mill. Mind you, they were when you first contacted them.
they shot Enterprise twice, and then T'Pol's like, well, that was like their version of a shot across the bow.
Yeah, I think Archer even mentions that. Oh, that was a shot across the bow. Okay. You know, like he's very surprised that would happen.
How different history would have been if they just had destroyed the ship.
That's right.
Outright, you know, and Earth wouldn't have been able to respond to that. And so it would have just
exactly. So anyway, the final scene is essentially, you know, Trip telling her, you know, I'm pregnant and I'm like walking around with your kid kind of thing. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that was even possible, blah, blah, blah. And then she scans him. She basically says, oh, you know, she's developing nicely. And yeah, it looks like it's safe to, you know, transplant the embryo into another host. And then it's kind of the end. There's not a lot going on here, unless you guys have anything else to say about that. But that's pretty much how the episode ends for the most part. Yeah, we see Trip's blemish that, you know, apparently is an embryo.
Looks like he has a big bruise, like a bunch of
it looks like he
hockey
just got
balls.
punched in it. Yeah, it looks like he was a goalie for the Mallrats.
Something took a lot of like shots to the ribs here. Yeah, like it's kind of like, you know, and then there's kind of like it ends very sort of peacefully. It you know, just like the Klingons are like, listen up, man, our debt is paid. We owe you shit now. You know, it was everything we could do not to kill those Xyrillians. And so see you never, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we'll see you again. If we do, we're going to kill you, by the way.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much the end of the episode. And everybody kind of goes on their merry way. And that's the end of it.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of this podcast, Dave, because I'm pretty sure there might be some fun facts our way.
Fun facts with Adam's dogs?
Not today.
With Adam and possibly his dogs.
Okay,
no, the dogs.
They might make
upstairs.
an appearance. We don't know. Oh, okay.
I've returned to the basement.
All right. Anyway, fun facts, Adam. What do you have for us?
All right. So Randy Oglesby, who was trained at L, who was the captain of the Xyrillian ship.
Yes,
later
I know
played
this
a recurring-
actor somewhere.
Yeah, he played a recurring character called Degra during the third season.
Oh, he's one of the Zindi.
Oh,
he's the
he's
Zindi. He's that Zindi guy. Yeah, I was like, I know this dude.
You know what? The voice was familiar. Yeah,
and the face, but it, you know,
right.
it's
that's cool.
I don't know. I got a shot of him at the ready, but yes, he's.
And then Julianne Christie, who was Alain, previously appeared as Dexa, a Talaxian in Voyager, in the episode Homestead.
She was she was a Talax. She was the Talaxian that like gets Neelix to leave the ship, I think.
Okay.
It's like basically Neelix gets a new girlfriend and an adopted son, and he kind of leaves the ship like 3 episodes before the end of Voyager.
Yeah, yeah. That was kind of his end all.
Yeah. That was like, I was like, what? Neelix doesn't go to the Earth after all this, but he doesn't. So
you would have thought he would have too, which is weird.
Yeah, he could have ended up there by accident so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So the executive producer, Brennan Braga, thought this episode's depiction of Tucker was effective and it helped set Enterprise apart from the other Star Trek series. Braga believed what was especially was refreshing was the way in which the character was very eager to board the Xyrillian ship, but soon becomes desperate to leave due to how strange he finds it. Pardon me.
Yeah, which is what you mentioned earlier, Adam.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you would never see Riker do, just because they're just too seased.
Well, Riker did have that one episode.
You wouldn't even see Harry Kim do that. Like it was, I thought, I guess, yes. Does it set it aside?
And Jody, when he was stuck in that cave with the, what was it, Klingon?
The Romulan. Centurion
right.
Bakra.
Yeah, he was kind of whiny near the end, saying he wanted to go home and stuff like that. But
yeah,
he was also injured too. So
yeah, like I think it's especially considering that Tucker is one of the more senior members of this crew and should be a little bit more put together. But
and even Archer said something along the lines of like, I've known this guy for 8 years. He's tough as nails. Like it doesn't make any sense that he's feeling this way or he's acting this way.
Yeah.
But
But
it just goes
do
to show you that even the toughest nails guys can have a problem, right?
I don't know if I agree with Braga's like assessment that this sets it apart from all Star Trek. It's different, but
No, the theme song sets it apart from all the other Star Trek.
I didn't actually read this until just a few minutes ago, because I still do think that, Dave. I think that you never saw any crew member almost freak out when they get beamed down anywhere or move.
Yeah, I agree.
All
they're
business.
they're supposed to be able to do anything.
I can do anything.
But
that's only if you have faith of the heart, Dave. Maybe
But
he didn't
again,
have it at this
it's
point.
just their lack of experience. They haven't done too much. They're really learning.
And that's a theme, especially in the first season. It's especially the theme in the first season, Adam, is like we see a lot of the screw ups. We see a lot of the stuff that they're not comfortable with, which is one of the reasons why I like the series, which a lot of people, clearly don't. But that's kind of why we're here, though.
Well, even
We're
this
here to
episode,
keep
like I
some
said, like if the Klingons had blown them out of the sky, that would have been like there's no Federation then, and a lot of things go differently here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But luckily they don't. It's just like they got lucky. This crew gets lucky a lot, and they kind of go a lot of hill.
But every Star Trek crew gets lucky all the time.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Well, without T'Pol, I think that they'd be blown away by now anyway. So she's
for sure. Yeah.
They would have that tree
T'Pol
planet
is really
would've
the
got
savior of this crew. If it wasn't for T'Pol, they would already be dead.
them. Rock people would have got them.
Yeah. If it wasn't the rock people, it was the people before that. So.
The Klingon battle cruiser that appeared in this episode was very much unexpected. Reuse of the Katinga class model. So, Dave, I don't know if you can find that, but
I sure can.
Expect the unexpected.
Indeed.
That's true.
While you're doing that, I'll find something else out here. Yeah, this episode features the first appearance of holodeck technology. It is unknown whether Federation holodeck technology was later developed from this basis or developed independently.
Yeah, and I think it was a perfect choice for them not to say anything past that. Not like, oh, we're going to study this hard or something like that. Like they literally just left it with, we've seen it, but that's it. Tucker's recollection is all they have at this point of this technology, right? So,
well, all he can do.
Tucker could have invented it. We don't know.
It comes back, and maybe he did. It was just like Scott, invented whatever the transwarp or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Or
transwarp beaming.
That's it. Thank you.
Transwarp beaming. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. It takes me like longer. You can get through 3 facts by the time I pull up the image.
It looks great though. Looks great.
Yeah, it looks cool. I love this design, always have, and they make a big point though in Discovery, Adam, that this is like, I guess it's more specifically the D7 is like their new battle weapon that like Laurel and Ash Tyler were like pumping up in season 2, and they're like, this is going to make us the mighty empire of like 10 years from now when the Kor and Kang and Koloth will be tussling with Kirk. I guess I would have liked to seen this look a little bit more like a prototype, like an earlier, like something that would make it seem like an earlier model. It's supposed to be 100 years before that, right?
Yeah. You know what they could have done, Dave? They could have gone back to the. Oh, sorry, I was Romulans. I was thinking of the original series when they showed the Romulan ships, but they didn't show the Klingon ship, did they?
They did show the Klingon ship in like the Trouble with Tribbles and a couple things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it could have been more boxy or more just something. I don't know.
Something. I don't know.
I think this is fine. Yeah. I'm happy with it.
What I really like about this ship and the Romulan Warbirds is the fact that they put the bridge way out front. It's always,
it's a status thing. Yeah.
Like the Starfleet vessels, the bridge is back
at the top,
in the middle of the
more
saucer. Yeah, middle of the saucer.
But like that's not really where you would want to put a bridge in either case. You'd want to put it somewhere deep in the middle of the ship to protect it. Yeah, but
depends on what you're trying to protect, though.
The captain.
Well, if you think about it, though, like stuff like submarines and stuff like that, they're trying to protect their payloads. That's what they're trying to protect. They're not trying to protect their bridge. Yeah, obviously it's deep in, but the periscope has to have the ability to go up and down. You have to be able to see from there, stuff like that. So, the logic having it up front doesn't make a lot of sense.
Up front doesn't, and on the top, like when you could put it in more in a secure location. But the idea that goes back to like the original series.
Well, the battle bridge is in the middle, right?
Yeah,
It's
like
literally
on the Enterprise D,
on
it
top
is,
of the and the Enterprise D, it's in the middle, so it's kind of makes sense. That,
and Gene like they pointed that out to him in the original series, and Gene Roddenberry's like he wanted to be able to see, like he wanted the bridge because they knew that most of the action on the show would be on the bridge, and he wanted people to be able to see the bridge from the outside for scale.
Either way, it's a fictional starship on a fictional show, so I don't think it really makes that much of a difference.
I just really like the bridges. I just like the way the Klingon ships and the Romulan ships is just so far forward and looks so menacing.
Yeah, it does for sure. And the kind of the nacelles kind of sticking out like claws or arms is another thing that I think is a neat trait as well.
Okay, so this episode shows that Archer believes that is the first interspecies pregnancy involving a human. However, it will later turn out it is not even the first instance of the first interspecies reproduction involving Tucker.
What?
It's revealed that the half Vulcan son of an alternative version of him operates in the Delphic expanse.
Oh, right.
North Star.
But that timeline hasn't been created yet.
Yeah, well, it's later. They did say it's later.
Yeah.
Enterprise will uncover an earlier precedent when they witness descendants of humans and Skagarans. On the other hand, T'Pol's claim that this is the first recorded of an incident with a human male becoming pregnant remains unchallenged.
Yeah. Just how I always wanted to get into the history books.
Makes sense.
This is the first known hostile encounter between a Starfleet vessel and a Klingon ship.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. It's that's a big first.
Yeah, a lot of firsts. Well, this show is all about firsts, right? That's the whole point of the show. So,
T'Pol later brings up Tucker's dalliance with the female Zerillian engineer in Oasis, which causes him, a later episode called Oasis, which causes him to angrily reply to T'Pol, "Well, you'll never let that go."
Yes.
So this continues.
How the hell did I get knocked up?
How the hell did I get knocked up?
Yeah. And then Captain Archer says he's known Trip for 8 years, and which does match up with the episode First Flight, which takes place in 2143, which was 8 years earlier.
He says he's been in Starfleet for 12, I think, in this episode.
Yeah, he's been working on becoming a chief engineer for 12 years. Yeah. But he only met Archer 8 years ago.
Yeah. Just some interesting points here. The in Star Trek Magazine, The Ultimate Guide, this episode was rated 1 out of 5 Arrowhead insignia and was named the worst installment of Enterprise's first season, which I don't agree with.
Really?
At all.
I don't agree with that.
We'll see once we do all the ratings, but I like this more than last week.
Yeah, me too. The unofficial reference book Beyond the Final Frontier comments about this episode. A male pregnancy sounds terrible, but this pulls it off with a blend of humor, genuine humanity, and freakiness. And really sign that Connor Trenier is going to be a useful member of the cast. This is a good episode.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of that, shall we?
Let's do ratings. Yep.
All right.
Okay. Going over to ratings. Let's bring her up. It's small. Huh? Okay, you guys can see that. Jody, you can start us off.
Oh, you know what, Dave?
His rating.
Yeah, Kevin sent in his. Yeah, he was not a fan.
Kevin was definitely hard in this episode.
Yeah, he's got COVID right now, so he's not feeling good. So it's coloring his rating.
There you go. You know what? I'm gonna give this. This is hard for me. You know what? I'm gonna give this a 6.5. I like this more than the last week's episode, but not a hell of a lot more.
I liked this more than last week's, but Adam, you're next, actually. So
I'm going to go higher on this one. I like this episode a lot. It was an 8 for me, and
really?
simply because T'Pol stole the show with her sarcasm.
T'Pol was great. Yeah.
Don't stick your fingers. That's the first lesson.
That's the first rule of diplomacy. Yeah.
Don't stick your fingers where they don't belong.
That's right. Makes perfect sense.
Like on a guardrail before it's going up or whatever.
That's right. Well, you don't put your hands on the guardrail anyway, Dave. That's why it's a guardrail.
There you go. Don't get your fingers cut up.
I also really liked, just again, I said it already, but just the uniqueness of this mission where he goes over there and he's little bit afraid.
Yeah, there was a lot of cool, subtle things in this, which was, and not so subtle actually, but that's one thing that I have to say is good about the episode is that it's different for a Star Trek episode for sure, and not even the main topic of it makes it different. It's how he reacts and some of the things that they do in the episode, which I think is interesting, and nipples
all up and down your arm.
Yeah,
Who's to say?
all up and down them arms.
I mean, to get the arm boobs. All right. I'm going 7.5.
That's higher than I thought you'd give it, Dave.
Me too.
Me too. Well, it beat last week's episode, but didn't beat Fight or Flight. So
Broken Bow still holding solid as the best episode of the season.
I can't believe that this has a 7.3 on IMDb, though. I'm surprised by that.
Do you know what's funny too is I know you're not necessarily the biggest Discovery fan, Jody, but
I'm not. No,
but we do this our Discovery podcast on Thursdays, which Adam's also on, and he knows that the IMDb ratings for the Discovery episodes are atrociously bad.
Very
low.
skewed. I'm
Really
sure.
low.
Like so low,
Yeah.
you go. It's only like we're taking them from the day of, so it's like 180 people went out of their way to low rate it, or whatever it is. But so it's maybe I have to come back to those scores in time. But
and it's the same problem that they have with game reviews and movie reviews and all that, right? Like it's you have people review bombing it, even if it wasn't that bad, they're like 1 out of 10, it's like stuff like that.
I mean, even this episode was named the worst installment of Enterprise first season. So, I mean, it probably came along over time.
But there's one thing that I think we have to really point out here, guys, is in reality, though, we've watched 4 episodes technically. Well, technically 5, but four complete episodes, 4 complete stories.
Right.
This is a lot stronger than most of the other Star Trek series to start, in my opinion. Especially Next Gen.
Especially Deep Space.
And Deep Space Nine. Yeah, Deep Space Nine's first season is awful.
It's not
I don't care what Eddie... Oh, it's terrible. You guys know that. You did your rewatch for it, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second season, for that matter, isn't very good either. It's got its moments, but they all do. But like to me, like this reminds me a lot of like the first season of Voyager, but
yeah, where you had the occasional decent episode, but for the most part, it was kind of lackluster. I think this is better than Voyager season 1, with the exception of
it feels so much the same to me,
episodes.
and I think it's because it's the same showrunner.
Yes, yeah, well, that is definitely.
Shows. And I think that I think they should have shook it up. I don't think they should have got him to do this show. I think, they did. Berman and, they were writing it over, but I feel like the franchise needed a shake up. And and I think that's why we had years of no Star Trek after this show. I think the show gets a bad rap and that it ruins.
I don't think this show is the reason why we got a problem with Star Trek eventually. I think this show didn't help, but
it didn't help.
I don't think this was the reason why there was a problem.
There was franchise fatigue. I think that
much,
I think those next gen movies were kind of a mixed bag, and then there was the whole more of it had to do with the split between Viacom and CBS and Paramount and all those things in that decade. As I played all those Julie Chen clips, her husband Les Moonves was dismantling Viacom basically during all those years, and he hated Star Trek. He was one of these things he didn't want, and he was trying. He ripped it up and gave the movie rights here and the TV rights here, and that's why we had so many years of issues. But,
for sure.
So what's next? What's the next?
Our next episode is actually called Terra Nova. If this is the one where they find it's a colony that they haven't heard from in 70 years, and they go there and realize that they're living underground.
Human colony
and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a human colony. It's actually, from what I remember, it's not a bad episode.
Directed by LeVar Burton.
Yes, this is actually the first episode that's directed by him in this series, from what I remember. But this is something that Enterprise had a lot of. They had a lot of guest directors, especially in this series. So it's interesting to see how they do their take on it. So should be a good watch.
LeVar Burton has some of the best directed episodes of Star Trek, period.
He does.
especially in Deep Space, but also in Voyager. And
well, so does Jonathan Frakes though. Jonathan Frakes did some pretty good episodes, but he also did some terrible movies. So kind of works out both ways.
well, he only had two. He had First Contact and he had Insurrection. So
yeah, Insurrection is terrible.
At worst, he's batting 500. That's pretty good.
I don't think Insurrection
First
was
Contact
terrible. I think it was wrong for him. I think it was wrong.
Jody
for him.
hates
It should have never
Insurrection.
been a movie. Should have
It shouldn't
never
been
been a movie.
It shouldn't
Yeah.
be a movie. Agree.
And speaking of
been an
Jonathan
episode.
Frakes directing, he was most recently directing the most recent episode of Star Trek Discovery,
Did he?
Stormy weather.
titled "Stormy Weather."
I
and it was
still
this
haven't
one-
watched any of season 4 yet, so
Oh,
I'm just gonna
Jody,
binge it when it's
getting
finally done.
really interesting.
Is
Yeah.
it? Okay, so maybe I'm wrong that they're not going to have any more seasons.
We'll see.
Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, if
they
that
haven't.
works out for them, it won't be. But
What's that?
If those 180 people who down voted on IMDb have their way, yes, then no.
Oh, has this got a lot of downvotes?
Oh yeah, it's always like you go. What's the rating of this episode so far? Oh, it's like 4.1.
You know what? And it's the same thing we said to Kevin going into this. Kevin hated the series, and he might still hate the series. I don't know, but you know what? At least he's given it a shot, and that's my advice to everybody.
The marks up again.
Oh sure.
Oh, I don't think Kevin's been too terrible with it so far.
Well, he gave it an 8 to the first episode, and he's been a 6.
He's going down.
He's going
down and down and down. So hopefully next week he'll go back up again. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd love to know why he didn't like this episode. Maybe it is because he's not feeling well. But
It's probably that, and
it could
then
also just be because he didn't like the episode.
we get and in 2 episodes we get the Andorian incident.
We do, which is, in my opinion, the best episodes of the first season.
100% agree with you on this one.
Yeah, the Andorian episodes are
Is
phenomenal.
that Jeffrey
I love
Combs who plays him?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the
sure.
only one.
Weyoun himself.
He plays a lot of
I have to admit, I
characters in
find it
this
somewhat
series.
disturbing seeing you working for these Federation people.
Yeah. So, anyway, Dave, we
Pink
have
skins.
other things than Enterprise on this channel, do we not?
We sure do. Tomorrow night on D Space 9 at 9ish with Jeff Mader and many others, including myself, we'll be talking about the newest edition of Star Trek, or not newest. It's the next episode of Star Trek D Space 9 came out in 1996. We're going to be talking about tomorrow the Quickening.
Quickening.
This is one where like the Jem'Hadar like basically put a disease onto this planet in the Gamma Quadrant, and Bashir
okay.
is trying
yeah.
to like cure
It's
the
a-
plague.
This is the Bashir episode, yeah.
It's a Bashir
Well, one of
episode.
them.
It's I remember it being good. So I'm
I remember it being all right. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think it was anything spectacular, but it was good.
I don't think it's like coming off last week, which was To the Death, which was like like the episode where they have to team up with the Jem'Hadar to fight the Jem'Hadar, and it was a really good episode. So it'll be interesting to see how this one compares. But we'll be talking about that tomorrow night, D Space 9 at 9ish, Tuesday, December 28th. I'm not January yet. And then this Thursday, along with Adam and Michael Chan, we're gonna be talking about the mid-season finale of Star Trek Discovery, titled to make a connection or something like that.
When did they come back, Al? After that?
February.
Okay, so maybe I'll binge the first half.
It's Valentine's week, right? Valentine's.
Yeah, and basically what's happening. So we'll finish up with Discovery this Thursday, and then next week
And
Prodigy
comes back, right?
Star Trek Prodigy comes back, and I'll be covering that with Jessica Chan and Davin Skellhorn. And so I think they just don't want both of them to release on the
Do
same.
we have
day.
a release date yet on Picard?
It's like February, first week of February, I think.
Oh, okay, so it's
So
around.
they're
when
going to cross
Discovery comes
over
out.
then, those ones.
Yeah.
Prodigy and Picard will cross over then. it sounds
And
like.
Enterprise and Picard will cross over.
Discovery.
Discovery and
Discovery,
Picard.
pardon me.
Discovery and Picard. Yeah, they would presumably cross over too. So
You can have Enterprise whenever you want right now, Adam.
all
Enterprise at
the
8
time.
works.
So lots of different things. We also have our Star Trek Radio Theater, which you can check out. We have it's a whole playlist, 2 full seasons of shows. Most recently, we did Star Trek First Contact, which I will find some time to edit this week, and get the finish up for season 2. And we'll be looking ahead to doing some kind of a show in the new year for season 3 of Star
This
Trek
guy over
Radio.
here, though, couldn't
Yes.
pronounce data correctly.
Data.
Anyway.
It was a kind of a whole thing. You know, he's British. You know, he says he is us. Anyway, so those are all the Star Trek things we have here on Live Long and Podcast. You should also check out Davin Skelhorn's Star Trek podcast called Locutors of Trek. Commander. He was the one playing Zephram Cochrane in our most recent broadcast. He was on Trivial Debates with us this morning. Check out his Star Trek podcast, Locutors of Trek, and his X-Men the animated series rewatch called X-Rated.
Yeah, I keep forgetting. I gotta watch that.
Yeah, I was on it. We talked about Captive Hearts, and so you should check out Davin's podcasts. Absolutely, check out our other one called Trivial Debates, where we just did this morning. Adam was competing along with Davin and my son Eamon. Max
I was
hosted.
rooting for Adam.
Thank
I
you.
know
Jody.
you had the comment in there. It was a
But
good.
they have to listen to figure out who won. I
You
won't
gotta
give
find
it
out.
away.
We can't spoil it.
No, we can't spoil it.
So that would be wrong. So check that out and listen to all that holiday theme. A lot of great different debates over there. And then Super Mater Brothers Podcasting, our last channel where we talk about movies and TVs that's not Star Trek. Most recently, we talked about Spider-Man: No Way Home. We also covered things like Survivor, season 41, Big Brother. We did other shows like The Serpent this year. We talked about we talked about all kinds of stuff. I can't even remember all Marvel shows.
You should just check out the channel.
You should check out the channel. There's so much there and so much more to go.
So
and
much content, all for free.
I really want to cover Hawkeye whenever Jeff, my brother, gets around to watching it. So, anyway, that's it, Jody.
Anyway, that's it for this episode of Enterprise at 8. So thank you all for being here, and hopefully Kevin feels better, and maybe he'll join us on the next one. And that's it. So stay safe, and we'll see you next time, I guess.
All right, live long.
You have something to play us out?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
We're gonna go with this.
I suggest you stick with the civilian clothes. Seems to help hide the